Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NFL and NBA. I have a brand new video to discuss with you guys today. We're going to discuss tight ends and defenses. What are the best possible plays for us week 5 of the NFL? But before I get started with the video, I appreciate you guys drop a like. It definitely helps my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And at the same time, if you are new to the channel, never been here before, never seen any one of my videos, welcome. Make sure you do subscribe down below, put on those post notifications. This way you don't miss out on any of my NFL videos or live shows, as well as NBA videos on a daily basis. And 4 or 5 nights a week we will have live shows 1 hour before lock for the NBA as well. So a lot of content, a lot of little information. I love, more importantly, I like to just be able to have that kind of relationship with my viewers, as far as making sure I have some live shows so we can interact, get to know one another, and actually feed off of one another, and have that good DFS community right here at DFS Zone. So if you want to be part of that, make sure you do subscribe, put on those post notifications, and this way you don't miss out on any of the videos or live shows. All right, guys, with that being said, we're going to discuss tight ends and defenses. I got 3 tight ends that I'm kind of like targeting this week. There are a few others that are intriguing, may sprinkle them in a few lineups, but these are the 3 that I'm going to discuss. I think I am more really in tune with these 3 guys. I think they're going to be the ones that I'm going to utilize the most in my lineups this week. And on top of that, we'll discuss with you 2 defenses that I'm eyeing on, that I have my eye on, and discuss a little bit about what are the reasons why. But when we go to the tight ends here, man, all right, we got Travis Kelce here, Zach Ertz. They're the top 2 dogs. I'm obviously fading on Kelce simply because of the matchup. I know Jacksonville is fairly good defensively. I think they haven't really faced a monster offense like Kansas City. We will see, but I'm not willing to wait. I'm not willing to pay to see if Jacksonville definitely comes through here defensively and shuts down either Curse or Hunt or anybody for that matter. So I think Kansas City still is going to score points on Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville is that strong defensively, but I believe that it's, for me personally, I'd rather fade the Kansas City players this week. The matchup is a little tougher, and there's a big slate. There's more than enough action in other areas. And when you come and you think about the top 2 tight ends here today, I mean, the first one that stands out for me automatically is Zach Ertz. I normally don't pay up at tight end. For you guys who have been viewing me for a couple of weeks now, I always say I prefer to pay down at tight end and pay down on the defense, so that I could be able to spray those savings over to some of the more major positions like wide receiver or quarterback. Like this week, I kind of like the receivers and quarterback. Last couple weeks ago, I kind of favored the running backs. So you want to be able to gauge it on that. But Zach Ertz, man, 7,500, 6,500 on DK. Obviously a little expensive, but he's getting the targets, man. He is part of the offense. He gets a lot of snaps. He is an integral part of the offense. That's what's important here, is that Zach Ertz is not on this team just to be a blocker or anything like this. This gentleman here is out here to also go and get some balls, and he is definitely doing that. He's getting pretty much 47 targets thus far this year, averaging about 12 targets a game, and that really stands out for me. 31 receptions, pretty much 327 yards thus far this year. He's averaging 81.8 yards per game, as you can see here. 10.5 yards per catch, which is pretty good. The only downfall and the disappointment is that he has not crossed the goal line yet, but he is just reconnected with Carson Wentz. They're going to get this thing going. This week may be the week that he may be able to plunge it in here. So I really like Zach Ertz on just those numbers. Another thing that also stands out at me is that the other 2 teams, Minnesota has played 4 teams thus far in the first quarter of the season, and 2 teams are more tight end oriented offenses, where they utilize their tight end as part of their offensive scheme, like San Francisco with George Kittle, as well as Green Bay with Jimmy Graham, and both of those guys did over 90 yards. We had Kittle put up 9 targets, 5 receptions and 90 yards in his game against Minnesota, and Mr. Graham had 8 targets, 6 receptions, and 95 yards in his game against Minnesota. And now they're going to face Zach Ertz, who gets actually a little bit more targets than these guys on a regular basis. So I really like the matchup due to that. Not only that, is that we know that Philadelphia is going to throw the ball to Zach Ertz. There's no doubt about it. And I just don't see how they're going to be able to stop him from at least getting targets. The other thing that I like here is that Minnesota's pass defense is poor, 23rd in the league, 278 yards per game, giving up 8 TDs. Versus tight ends, just the tight ends alone, they've given up 16 receptions, 246 yards. That's 15.3 yards per catch. Now, that's 15.3 yards per catch they're giving up to tight ends, and we got a guy here who's averaging 10.5. So something's got to give. Is either they're going to be able to hold Zach to 10, hit to his 10 yards, which still will probably get him his 5 to 10 receptions. And if they give him any more than that, then it's a possibility he may get 15 or better. So I kind of like those odds. Also, as far as fantasy points, there ain't a whole lot of fantasy points in the tight end position. Minnesota here is only giving up 11.7 DK points and 9.7 Fanduel points. But you know what? I'll take those 11.7 when you got a guy who's averaging 12 right now and is capable of getting 16. And I know for a fact he's capable of getting 20. So with that, I think Zach Ertz is definitely someone you should consider. If you're looking to pay up, he is definitely someone you must have in your lineups. The next guy I'm going to discuss is Mr. Jared Cook of the Oakland Raiders. Now, I'm pretty much on the Oakland bandwagon this week. As you probably guys already know, I already discussed Derek Carr as one of my quarterbacks. I already have paired him with either Mr. Nelson or Mr. Cooper. And now I'm throwing in their tight end because, I mean, out of the guys that are here, Kittle is definitely in play. Jimmy Graham is in play. Rudolph is in play. But Jared Cook, man, you can't pass him up. He's averaging 15.5 fantasy points. He's putting up almost 100 yards a game. This gentleman is at 5,900, much cheaper than Zach Ertz, and he has the capability to put up the same amount of numbers because he's getting the targets. We got here 4,800 on DK, very, very good price. Can get you about 20 or better. As you can see, he got 22.5 in game 1 against the Rams. He's the 10th leading receiver in the league, and he's actually the second highest he's actually the highest tight end as far as receptions are concerned. Number 1 in tight end in yards this year. He's averaging 35 targets. He has 35 targets, 25 receptions, 370 yards. He's averaging, as you can see, 92.5 yards per game, 2 receiving touchdowns, 15.5 fantasy points per game. And he has the capability of getting you 20 to 25. He's had 1 45-yard reception. He's had 7 receptions for 20 yards or more as a tight end. He also has had 2 100-yard games, as you can see here, 180 and 110, which is really, crazy. In the red zone, he's had opportunities. He's a red zone target, so I'm going to mention that as well. He's 8th in the red zone, 87.4% catch percentage, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 46 yards, 2 TDs. Those numbers are very, very nice. In a high implied total game, you can expect him and the rest of the... And if he's not going to go off, obviously it'll be Nelson or Cooper, but I would not be surprised if at least 2 out of these 3 guys do very well in this game against the Chargers. Chargers pass defense is 21st in the league, 276 yards per game, and coughing up 10 TDs to the opposition thus far this year. Versus tight ends, 15 receptions, 212 yards. That's 14.1 yards per catch, and he's averaging 14.2. So right where you need to be. They give up 14 per catch, and Jared Cook, catches about 14 yards per catch. So I can see him having a very nice game here. They just need to definitely target him. He needs to have at least 10 targets to be effective. If he can get in the end zone once, we automatically will get anywhere between 15 to 20 fantasy points, and that will really pay off his price. I really do like him here. Now, as far as the Chargers of fantasy points, they've coughing up to tight ends 11.3 DK points and 8.7 Fanduel points, pretty much in the same range as Minnesota versus Zach Ertz. But again, I mean, this is just a great matchup. It's a great matchup for Jared Cook. I expect him to do very well here. And the last time the Chargers faced any of these guys, now the Chargers also, looking back, they played against Kansas City and Kelsey. Kelsey only had 6 targets in that game, 1 reception, and only for 6 yards. But that game was the Tyreek Hill game. It was the game that he was just, they fed it to him, and he was just running all over the field. He had a large 100-yard receiving game. So Kelsey was not, was like kind of non-existent in that game. Then the next time around, they faced George Kittle. George Kittle put up 6 receptions, 125 yards, and 1 TD against this team, against the Chargers. So I see numbers like that. Obviously, when you have these offenses that really have the tight end as part of their offensive scheme, like Cook is here with the Oakland Raiders, as well as Zach Ertz with the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, you can't pass them down, especially if they're getting targeted. That's what we want. We want targets. Targets turn into fantasy points if he gets receptions, and those receptions could possibly be touchdowns as well. So we want to have those kind of players on our team when it comes to fantasy points. So Jared Cook is definitely a fine play for me, man. My last play for tight end is a cheaper play, and it's also I'm also still gauging a couple players in the same teams. Vance McDonald, the Pittsburgh Steelers. As you know, I'm on Ben Roethlisberger this week. I also like Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'm gonna do the same thing here. I definitely will vouch for Vance McDonald here as well. Vance McDonald, 4,600 here. Not a bad price for him. 3,700 on DK, so he's even cheaper there. He's got an 80% catch percentage ratio. Look at this, 15 targets, and he has 12 receptions. 15 and 12, 200 yards, 66.7 yards per game. As you can see here, he's had 1 touchdown. He has had a 75-yard reception as well, where he bulldoze a whole bunch of guys to get 75 yards. He's averaging 10 fantasy points per game. He can get you close to 19. He's been there before. And the beauty of it is facing against Atlanta, who is 25th in pass defense, giving up 284 yards per game, 9 TDs. And versus tight ends, they've given up 19 receptions, 194 yards, and 1 touchdown. And the tight ends have been averaging 10.2 yards per catch. And he is a gentleman here that's averaging 16.7, which I forgot to mention. 16.7 yards per catch. And obviously that 75-yarder was a big one. But nonetheless, we know he is capable of mauling down some would-be tacklers and taking them for a good 70 yards. So Vance McDonald's in a fine position here. The other thing that I also like is that Atlanta is having trouble in the red zone against the opposition. 81.2% of the time the opposition gets to the red zone, they score a touchdown. They have been averaging 4 attempts per game, the opponents, on Atlanta, and scoring 3 TDs. So, I mean, that surely means that Ben Roethlisberger and company is going to put up at least 21 points or more against this team, and this is one of the highest implied total games in the slate. So Vance McDonald, definitely a fine play. You must have a little Vance McDonald in your lineup, or at least sprinkle him in there somewhere in a few lineups. As far as the defenses are concerned, I really only like 2 defenses. The first defense I'm going to talk about is Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are 3rd in total defense. They have only given up 1,070 yards. That breaks down to 356.7 total yards per game. Only giving up about 20 points per game. What I like is at home, 21-8 here, and that breaks down to about 14.5 points given up at home to the opponents. And I always say it here with Carolina. I even said it when I was discussing Carolina for against the Giant players earlier in my other videos, is that Carolina is always usually pretty tough at home. I'm always wary of them at home. They play very good at home. I went and I looked, and in their last 8 home games, they have averaged out holding opponents down to only 17 points per game. And the Giants are coming in here. They're 23rd in total offense, scoring only 314.3 total yards per game, and 232.3 of those yards come through the air passing, and only 82 yards on average per game on the ground, only scoring 18.3 points per game. So it shows that they have a good opportunity here to keep the Giants under 18 points, and not only that, they're capable on out the ground. The other thing I like also, they have had 5 forced fumbles, and they also have had 5 interceptions, and 3 forced fumbles, and only have had 8 sacks defensively. But again, the Giants are not that strong. I really think Carolina, especially at home, man, they get really fired up. The fans are really like the 12th man for this team, just like the Seattle fans are for Seattle. They really get these guys going. Cam Newton is going to probably have a field day here. I think Cam Newton is definitely a fine play, which I did mention in the quarterback video. But you can't take them all. But Cam is definitely playing. He gets really, this team is going to be really tough to beat here in Carolina. I can see them putting Eli in some really bad situations and maybe coughing up and getting themselves an interception or a fumble recovery or something like that. So I would say sprinkle in a little Carolina Panthers. I think you'll be okay. Again, I don't like to pay really up high on the on defenses. I look for opportunities like teams that create sacks, can create turnovers, stuff like that. You want to be able to get those opportunities. The next one is the Tennessee Titans. Now, this They're the top team on DraftKings at 4,000. Here they're 3,900. And I like Tennessee. They're playing against Buffalo, you know. Tennessee is coming in here. They're 16th in total defense this year, allowing only 18.3 points per game. Pretty much here, 16.8 points per game. They're 8th in sacks, which I like. They have 12 sacks and they have 5 forced fumbles. And they're going up against Buffalo, who is 31st in total offense. They are 30th in passing and 30th in rushing. I mean, they're really, really bad right now. And you know, you can't, I mean, I just don't, I feel it's like a no-brainer. You got to take a shot with the Tennessee Titans at 3,900. Why not? On top of that, you have a rookie quarterback back there who has thrown 4 interceptions already. You make him uncomfortable, he just may cough up a ball. So Tennessee, with those, and Tennessee does, you know, they don't have a ton of interceptions, but nonetheless, hey, if they can get a couple of sacks, maybe force a fumble on this kid, maybe make him in a very, you know, put him in a situation where he's very uncomfortable and he just throws one into the defense, you got yourself a nice play here. So again, that's pretty much it, man. Tennessee Titans, definitely like them. Carolina Panthers, sprinkle a couple of these teams in there. As far as your defense is concerned, I really can see the opportunities where they could possibly get some turnovers and be able to give us those additional fantasy points that we like. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the tight ends, McDonald as well as Ertz and Mr. Cook. Any one of those 3, I think you'll be fine putting those in your lineup as well. And that's basically it, guys, man. Again, drop a like on the video. Please share the videos. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, especially if you want to continue to get all these NFL and NBA lineup advice videos coming your way. And other than that, man, you know, God bless. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys on the next video.